If you've seen my past videos, you know that I've said multiple times that I don't think the Bulls will make a move before the trade deadline, nor should they make a move for that matter, unless of course it means moving Otto for even minimal value since he's on an expiring contract and not a part of the Bulls' future. I was of the belief that it made more sense for the Bulls to stay put with what we have and wait for the offseason when the Bulls have a ton of cap flexibility that they could work with, and then they can also assess the free agency market, and of course, it gives the new front office a whole year to truly value and assess their current roster to see who fits for the long term and who doesn't. But given last night's terrible loss to the Spurs and the fact that the Bulls are going to have to go up against Nikola Jokic tomorrow, I have since changed my thinking on this. And with 1 week left to go before the NBA trade deadline on the 25th, there is one trade I do think the Bulls should make the more and more that we see where this team has been struggling, and that's what I want to talk about in today's video. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So guys, I'm not going to get into last night's loss because quite frankly, I don't think anyone wants to revisit that. I also made a post-game video last night, so if you really want to hear me rant, go ahead and check that one out. But obviously, last night's loss displayed yet again a problem the Bulls continue to struggle with, and that is interior defense. And not even just defense, also on offense, just trying to score in the paint as well. And by all of this, I mean, the Bulls need a true center. And a big man that can crash the boards, clog up the paint on defense, get you second chance opportunities on offense by getting offensive rebounds, and someone that isn't going to get bullied by nearly every center in the league. Like, I get it, when you're going up against guys like Jokic and Embiid, yeah, it's going to be a challenge. There's no question with that. But when you're getting handled by Jakob Poeltl or Moses Brown, guys who end up coming out having career games when they face the Bulls, yeah, that's a problem. Now, the most common guy we hear about in terms of who the Bulls should be pursuing in a trade, because we all know he's on the trading block, and that's Andre Drummond. Now, I've said this before, I actually like the idea of bringing Andre Drummond as long as we don't have to give up too much for him, and we can gain some kind of assurances that he would re-sign with the Bulls, given he's on an expiring contract. And by re-signing him, what I mean by is we wouldn't also have to pay him too much if we were to re-sign him. So not too much to ask for, right? Because what you don't want to happen is to give up some pieces to get Drummond. And then you have him, for a few months before he leaves for nothing in free agency, which is a high likelihood, I'll add, because he's probably going to want a lot more money than he's worth. And he's likely going to prefer to go to a contender because he's 27, he's been in the league for a while now, and he's tired of playing for losing teams. But at this rate, because it's been so frustrating as it has been for all of us Bulls fans to see that our team is so weak at the center position, I personally am willing to take the risk in potentially losing some assets to get Drummond, knowing that we might only have him for a half a season, and really not even half a season for that matter. And I'll get into who I would be willing to part ways with to get Drummond, but let me explain why, in my view, it's important to get a guy like Andre Drummond right now, even if it means we're not able to retain him. And the reasoning is really the fact that the Bulls need to make the playoffs. The Bulls need to make the playoffs to finally get some of these younger guys some postseason experience. They need to make the playoffs to keep Zach Lavine engaged and interested in wanting to actually stay with the franchise. And then finally, they need to make the playoffs to have some semblance of progress going into the offseason to attract other free agents. I know some Bulls fans are still of the opinion, the worst place that you can be in the NBA is in that stage of mediocrity, where you're just barely making the playoffs and not getting a high lottery pick, which to an extent is fair, but there comes a time when you've been a bad team for such a long time that you need to start slowly pulling yourself out of it, and progress needs to be made towards winning, and it starts by making the playoffs, getting some of your young guys experience, showing up to the league on a national level to get free agents noticing the team, and continuing to make progress from there. Like, I don't understand when people say we don't want to be mediocre, we want to be really bad or really good. Well, if you're starting from really bad, it's not just a switch overnight where you're all of a sudden going to be really good. No, you're going to build, get better, be an okay team, a fringe playoff team, to then a fringe contender, to then a contender. Since the Bulls traded away Jimmy Butler, they haven't even come close to making the playoffs. And this season, based on where they're at right now, they have an opportunity to actually make the postseason and start making those steps to contention. Now again, don't get me wrong, this roster as it currently is structured is not on a path to contention. There's still a lot of work to do, and I do believe Arturas will get the team to where it needs to be. But I do think getting a guy like Drummond, even if it's just a rental, hopefully they would be able to retain him, but even if it's just a rental, would get them on that next step that they need to be to get the young core some playoff experience and enables them to be better positioned as a franchise for free agents in the future. And as I've said before, Andre Drummond, for all of his flaws, he doesn't really fit in today's NBA all that well in the traditional sense of a big man because he can't shoot, he doesn't allow a team to spread the floor, and he's a horrible free throw shooter. But he's a big body that is an elite rebounder, an elite offensive rebounder. He plays solid defense that can be used against some of these other starting big men in the league who are no match for Wendell in terms of his size. And Drummond is actually a decent player on offense despite his inability to shoot. He's averaging 17.5 points per game, 13.5 rebounds per game. He's even improved his ability to be an okay passing big man, which has shown to be a more important quality in the league today, averaging 2.6 assists per game. He's also averaging 1.2 blocks and 1.4 steals. So all around, he's a solid player. I'm not saying he's a star. I'm not saying he's the answer to all the Bulls' problems, but a solid player, a true big man that the Bulls could certainly use down low. I mean, the Bulls have had such a challenging time in getting second chance opportunities, especially when their threes aren't falling. You put a guy in like Andre Drummond, one of the best rebounders in the league, to get you more opportunities and not just, have every possession be a one and done. That's a big game changer when you have offensive weapons like Lavine and Markkanen. The knock on Drummond is that he doesn't make a team better. Despite his great rebounding numbers and all the other metrics he puts up, it doesn't contribute to winning. But Drummond also hasn't been put on a team where he's had the luxury of playing with a high volume scorer like Lavine, a team that has a lot of outside shooters like the Bulls have, where you wouldn't necessarily need Drummond to shoot and help space the floor. He can focus on what he does best in crashing the boards, clogging up the paint and playing interior defense, posting up on guys, and getting some easy putback buckets. Now, who would I be okay with trading for Drummond? Well, it wouldn't be much, because at the end of the day, this is a risky move in that he might not stay with the team. There are questions about his overall attitude and motivation in playing hard. And on top of that, the Cavs don't have much leverage in trying to trade him because they're benching him until they find someone to move him to before the deadline. So the Bulls really shouldn't offer him that much, especially given the fact that they still haven't found a trade partner for him, given this was announced weeks ago. I honestly expected he would be traded within 2 to 3 days after that announcement when the Cavs said that they're not going to be playing anymore until they find a trade partner for him. So a package that I think would be reasonable for Drummond, that is worth taking a chance on, is, well, one, Otto to make the money work. He's on an expiring deal as well, so that really doesn't impact the Bulls at all. Daniel Gafford, Chandler Hutchinson, and a second-round pick. Now, as much as I like my guy Gafford, he just hasn't shown up well this season and really did not progress the way that I thought he would from his rookie year. And then, of course, Hutchinson, he seemed like a promising first-round pick when the Bulls first drafted him, after being a 4-year star college athlete, but he just really hasn't materialized into anything that we thought he could potentially be. Now, the reason I think the Cavs go for this is that both of these guys are still young. Gafford gives them a backup center for Jarrett Allen, who they've already indicated they're looking to build around as their starting center, which is why they're trading Drummond. Hutchinson, I don't really see much potential from him, but I wouldn't rule it out. Still young, athletic, a decent defensive player. So, the Cavs could see him as an attractive piece. And on top of that, a second-round pick. In my view, this is more than enough given the little leverage and demand power the Cavs have here. This gives them 3 young assets in the form of a pick, Gafford and Hutchinson, which are players the Cavs could use given their trading Drummond. Kevin Love isn't a part of their long-term future. They lack wing depth as well, and they're going to be rebuilding, so they're going to want young pieces for their team. And as for the Bulls, there isn't much of a need for Gafford if you're bringing in Drummond, especially when we already have Wendell. You can even throw Cornette and Felicio in there to an extent, even though Felicio's contract is expiring. Hutchinson hasn't really fit this roster for a while now, given how deep we are at the small forward. So overall, I actually think that this trade makes sense for both sides. The Bulls Don't give up too much for Drummond, so even if he walks in free agency, I mean, obviously it would be unfortunate that we would lose a second-round pick for him, but those are few and far between in finding a quality player anyway that late in the draft. And of course, I do still have hopes for Gafford, so I wouldn't want to lose him for nothing, but like I said, at the same time, the Bulls have got to start looking more competitive as a team and showing up as an up-and-coming team to attract free agents. And we've got to get these young guys some playoff experience for the future if the Bulls want to continue on this path to contention. That's my take on the matter though. What do you guys think? Do you think that this trade scenario for the Bulls makes sense? Do you like it? Do you think it's awful? Maybe you're not a fan of Drummond at all. Let me know in the comments. We've got 1 week until the trade deadline, so I'll keep you guys posted and updated on any progress. Be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.